It's my pleasure now to introduce our immediate past CEO and Executive Director, Tim McGourthy. And going back to Deborah's search presentation, we just need to clone. Doug's going to tell us how to clone Tim, and we're all done. Over the years, Tim McGourthy has contributed significantly to the organization. He's published 55 reports and briefs, hosted nearly 50 forums, built deep ties with local and public officials, strengthened the organizational reserves, codified administrative and board policies, and engaged the Research Bureau with a multitude of local and regional organizations. Under his leadership, the Bureau has become an important voice and partner on critical issues. Tim's approach has built strong relationships throughout the community and made the Bureau a valuable resource on many challenges facing Worcester, the gateway cities, and our regional municipalities. It's my pleasure to welcome Tim McGourthy to Dorset.
So Abe told me this was essentially my Academy Awards speech, and he promised I would not get pulled off by the music, so I'm afraid you're in for a little bit. But thank you, Abe. Thank you, members of the Executive Committee and members of the board. It has been an honor to serve this organization for the past 5 years. It's an incredible mission, an elite board, a powerful executive committee, and perhaps most importantly, a talented staff. As I've said at each annual meeting since I've arrived in Worcester, Worcester should be rightfully proud of the fact that we have created and supported an organization that is a living embodiment of civic spirit. I have many to thank for my time at the Research Bureau. First, I want to thank my chairs, Karen Duffy, John Spillane, John is here somewhere, John, and Abe Haddad, for leadership, guidance, and support. In violation of Murphy's Law that everything can go wrong, I have been lucky with board leadership throughout my time here at the Research Bureau. In furtherance of that, I want to thank the Executive Committee, present and past, for giving generously of time and insight. While rule by committee is dangerous, our discussions were open, honest, thoughtful, and fruitful. And thank you to the board. In the spirit of no small parts, only small actors, your involvement and your personal and financial support had made this organization more powerful than its size and budget indicate. The Bureau has the power of the pulpit in large part due to the many people who stand with us in our work and as we speak. That goes too for our corporate and philanthropic sponsors. It is impossible for us to sufficiently recognize you throughout the year for all that you do day in and day out. But please know that your support is valued and essential to keeping us focused on the big picture without worrying about how we keep the lights on. That too goes for Assumption College, who has literally kept the lights on for us almost every day of our existence. It also goes double for Greenberg, Rosenblatt, Cullen, Bitzoli, who help pay our bills, and Penta Communication, who makes people notice that we are actually out there still working. While like every nonprofit, we dedicate a significant amount of time and energy to fundraising, as many of you know if you've received the letters, emails, and ultimately phone calls from us, if you're really in hot water, from Abe, we are confident in our ability to raise our budget annually. That is an incredible place to be in sometimes challenging financial times. I want to especially thank two people who are not here today, Roberta Schaefer and Jean D'Aso. Without Roberta's indomitable spirit, this organization would not be the force it is today. And without Jean's love for this organization and its mission, it would have stalled many times over. And I want to personally and wholeheartedly thank three people who are here today. Mary Beth Burke, Mary Beth, where are you? Mary Beth Burke, Eric Nealand, and Tom Quinn, for their friendship and willingness, if not eagerness, to argue and advocate for good ideas. The Research Bureau thrives in no small part because of the passion and enthusiasm of these three people for the spirit of local institutions. I suspect we have had far more philosophical debates about the role and function of government than any city council or town meeting could possibly do. It's been a fun ride at the Research Bureau, especially because of the great people I worked with day in and day out. Local government is changing, and the Research Bureau must change with it. While the vision of this organization goes back to the days of the good government movement, focused on fiscal stability and administrative effectiveness, to remain relevant, we must be more. AAA ballparks require as much focus as AAA bond ratings. Worcester isn't looking to survive, it's looking to thrive. In the 1980s, fundamental questions of government existed: a future without federal funds, the impact of Proposition 2.5, the potential contradiction of a directly elected mayor but an appointed city manager. Worcester was going through an identity crisis, and one that was visible on the city streets. Main Street was stagnating, Shrewsbury Street was simply a destination for auto repair, and the Canal District did not exist on any map of the city. Venerable institutions like Norton Company and Weimer Gordon were no longer international titans of industry. The Biotechnology Research Park was considered avant-garde, and Holy Cross was so desperate for students, they even accepted me. The city manager form of government, one of Worcester's unique attributes among major New England cities, was in a precarious position with the retirement of Francis J. McGrath after 33 years. Today, the Worcester Renaissance is touted in newspapers across the country. Our streets experience new vibrancy while the business community is matched by a formidable educational and medical institution. Municipal government is strong, with high bond ratings, an efficient approach to employment and finances, and a city manager who works hand in glove with the mayor and major corporate and civic partners. It is the future, in many more ways than the present, that worries residents. At the Research Bureau, we draw more interest and attention with a forum on master planning than we do on budget analysis. Finance is critical, and administration is key. But as important to localities is education, health, economic opportunity, and neighborhood stability. These are the challenges that will determine the future of the community and the ultimate effectiveness of local government. And these are the challenges in front of the Research Bureau. Over the last 2 years, we took a deep dive on the Worcester Public Schools, recognizing that a public education remains the key to moving forward, individually and civically. The Worcester Public Schools strategic plan needs ongoing community support to ensure that the 85% of our youth who pass through our local elementary, middle, and high schools are ready to compete and lead. We have worked closely with the Community Health Improvement Plan process to ensure that we can identify and track the challenging public health issues holding back our regional communities, including drug use, obesity, and access to health care. We have looked at the dynamic aspects of our economy, from baseball stadiums to the immigration economy, identifying important steps to build on local employment in the region. Keep in mind, we have a better chance of growing the next Amazon than we do of winning one of Amazon's many headquarters. Finally, we have explored the power of opportunity zones, the potential of the transportation network, the difficult issue of foreclosure, the implementation of tax increment financing, and of course, the impediment of the dual tax rate to call for new ways to approach neighborhood stability. And much of that was all within the last year. Greater Worcester is a microcosm of the issues affecting the nation. While we have success, we also have failure. While we have potential, we also have missed opportunity. We have wealthy suburbs, middle-class towns, and a poverty-stricken inner city. We have disparities due to race and gender. We have unequal opportunity when it comes to education and success. When zip code affects outcomes, local government is on the front lines, and the Research Bureau must take up that charge. When we look at the region, we need to look at both the challenges of governance, but also the challenges of the governed. To build on Abraham Lincoln's words, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will understandably reflect the people. So a strong populace is necessary for a strong government. With data, observation, and analysis, we must continue to identify trends and offer understanding, and if possible, solutions to the issues of the day. We have the tools to understand whether 01608 is an asset or a liability. We cannot shrink from that responsibility. There is too much to do. While I am disappointed that I will not be part of the Bureau's future, I am grateful to have been part of its past. And as a Worcester resident, I'm excited to see where it goes next. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve. It's been an important part of my life, and I hope it continues to be an important part of all of yours. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. It's difficult for me to speak right now because I've learned so much from Tim and I've enjoyed working with him. I admire who he is, and it's a great loss to our community. I just need to take a second. In honor of your leadership and commitment to the Bureau, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to present you with this chair and thank you for all that you've done for the Research Bureau. He said, "You're really going to give me a chair? I'm not retiring."
There's the one thing I asked for when I started. I was jealous of Karen's chair.
I would like now to introduce our guest speaker, Douglas Brown, President of UMass Memorial Hospital and Chief Administrative Officer of UMass Memorial Healthcare System. He has served as a top executive in the system since 2003. UMass Memorial is a $2.4 billion integrated healthcare delivery system in Massachusetts, central Massachusetts, with 14,000 employees. The system includes approximately 30 corporate entities, a medical center, 2 community hospitals, a large physician group practice, and numerous related entities. It is a clinical partner of the University of Massachusetts Medical School. In its current role, Doug has a wide range of system responsibilities, including oversight of UMass Memorial's 2 community hospitals, its behavioral health provider, Community Health Link, and oversight of several system corporate functions, including human resources, legal affairs, governance, compliance, internal audit, government affairs, and health policy and public programs. Please welcome Doug Brown.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I think I'm going to take this and move around, if that's okay. I do better when I can walk. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, Abe, for that introduction. I got tired just listening to my responsibilities. Fortunately, I have a lot of good people to work with. And Tim, thank you for that inspiration. That was really, really a great thing you left all of us with. And you've obviously made a huge contribution to this community. So I want to personally thank you. And Eric, congratulations. Good luck with steering through the next few months. I've gotten to know the Research Bureau a little bit over the last few months, and it's really an extraordinary organization and provides a great benefit to this community. And so thank you all for your participation. I'm delighted to have the chance to chat with you today. I'm going to talk to you about what we call an anchor mission. This is a new experiment for UMass Memorial. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what it is. And I'm excited to share it with you. I want to do so largely because I want to inform you. You are all leaders in this community, and I see many good friends in the audience. But I also want to learn from you, and I really look forward to the dialogue and the conversation because there's a lot that you can share with us to help us ensure this is successful. And I guess lastly, and perhaps most importantly, I hope to inspire you to participate in this. You know, we do this by way of inspiration we've received from many others in this community who have stepped up over the years in all sorts of different ways to really lift up this community. And some of those stories we know about, some we don't. But we are just trying to carry on a tradition that's really been at play here for a long time. It may not have been called an anchor mission, but it's certainly something that's happened. So anyway, we look forward to the journey. So I start with this quote from the Democracy Collaborative, and this really explains a lot of what's been going on in my world in healthcare. And all of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the fact that healthcare in this country is going through this massive transformation that's happening. And the good news is that it is forcing us within the industry to start to think much more beyond our walls. And as the nation has focused more on health improvement in communities, it's forced healthcare institutions to think more about the non-clinical factors that contribute to health. And this is, I think, a really good thing because it's long overdue and it's needed. And I would argue that if you think back over the last 15 years, our country has been pretty much obsessed with health care, right? We've had these huge debates. Some of the information has been accurate. We've had healthy debates on the merits, and we've had very unhealthy debates on politics. But it's all about health care and coverage and how we're going to organize the system and whether there should be a mandate or not. And the problem is that I think that's been at the expense of health, ironically enough. And the reason is because when we think of our health, the fact is that few people know that health care, where we spend the vast majority of all our money, where we spend exponentially greater than any other nation on earth, both in terms of per capita spending, percentage of our economy, we're just off the charts. It all goes into that 20%. Healthcare actually contributes 20%, we think, to our health. And a far greater proportion, in fact 3 times, of what contributes to our health is what we call the social, environmental, and behavioral factors. These are things that public health experts have been screaming about for 20 years. But frankly, no one has really been listening, or we haven't had the money to listen. And these are the things, what we call social determinants of health, that are going to fundamentally determine the health of our society as we go forward. So what are these things? Here is just a listing of some of the categories. They have to do with economic stability, so that includes employment status, but even when one is employed, it includes the level of employment and their income level, huge social determinants, a major factor on your life. It includes housing, obviously a very big issue in this community. Where's Jan? Jan knows all too well and is working tirelessly to try to solve that problem. And it's not only the lack of housing availability, it's inadequate housing and inappropriate housing. You know, we've had an initiative at UMass Memorial where we have children come in with asthma, we treat them and then send them back to households that have mold and things that exacerbate their problem due to poor housing. It involves safety. Transportation is a big issue. When a neighborhood is not safe, it has a huge impact of the people who live in that community. Literacy is a big deal. Education level and education attainment. It involves food insecurity, hunger issues, as well as many others. All these we know are big societal issues, but we are just now learning much more about the impact they have on health. And that's really the connection I want to try to draw and talk to you about. So let me define some of these terms for you and then show you some data. So what is an anchor institution? It's a nonprofit or a public institution firmly rooted in their locales. People often refer to these as eds and meds because educational and medical institutions tend to fit this definition really well. We're a large medical organization, we're nonprofit. We're going to be in this community probably forever. We've been in for a long time. When things get tough for us economically, we never consider leaving the community. We're here to stay. They often serve social or charitable purposes, and they are place-based. And these institutions have a vested self-interest in helping to ensure that our communities are safe, vibrant, healthy, and stable. So what is an anchor mission? It's a commitment to consciously apply the long-term economic power of the institution to lift up the community. This is a very different way of thinking for us. We have many community benefit programs. Some of you are well aware of those. We have some very innovative programs that have achieved great success and distinction. But community benefit are done by way of grants that are extended to the community. And they can have an impact, but on a very small scale. And the concept we're talking about here is very different. It is leveraging our entire economic power. In our case, that's $2.5 billion. And using that to economically lift up that community to get at those social determinants of health. And if done well, that can have so much greater of an impact on a community than those community benefit programs, which are fabulous and great, and we're going to continue doing them, but this is a very different way of thinking. So it involves three pillars, essentially: sourcing, hiring, and investing. And let me just briefly touch on those before I go on. Sourcing is purchasing. We spend about $1 billion a year buying stuff, right? So that's goods and services of all kinds. Medical supplies. We're like any large employer. We buy pencils and pads and all sorts of different things. We buy services from consultants, from lawyers, from all sorts of different organizations, and that's about $1 billion a year that we spend. The idea here is intentionally redirecting more of that locally, right? Because historically we tend to buy often through big group purchasing organizations, but we don't, in an intentional way, say, what are the types of things we could buy locally? Are there businesses and enterprises that could service those needs? If there are not, how can we help seed some of those places so that they can do it? And of course, everyone wins when that happens, right? We can buy locally if we can help develop a company that can fulfill those needs. We've helped develop a new company. We've given employment opportunities, and other cities that have done this and other healthcare institutions have done some really exciting things. One small example is they've gone to a very impoverished neighborhood and found individuals who are interested in starting a linen service. And so the hospital helped them get started, gave them some training, and assured them that if they got started and met certain requirements, they would give them certain business. That has turned into a business that employs now 20 people and does all of the linen service for the hospital. This is in Cleveland. So that's the type of thinking that sourcing involves. Hiring, again, is similar. It's targeting neighborhoods that have disproportionate needs and unemployment levels, and trying to find opportunities, usually through entry-level positions. Giving training that's often needed for those employees, and then once they get in the organization at entry level, what are the type of tools and support we can give them so they can move up that ladder and become a higher wage employee over time. And then investing, which may have the biggest early impact, it is looking at our investment portfolio differently. So in our case, we have about $400 million in our long-term investment portfolio that we invest, and that is, we have a group of stewards of that who are financial experts, like many of your investment committees, and they look to invest in a diversity of stocks and bonds to ensure the best possible return. Well, what if we took a portion of that and used it not in the form of a grant, but as an investment, but an investment locally? And we would look to get a return, maybe not quite as much as we'd expect in the stock market over time. So maybe instead of 8%, maybe we'd look at 1 or 2 or 3%, but all that money would go into a community project. That's what investing is all about. So let me just tell you a little bit about our steps in our journey and how we got to this place and where we're going. So it started about 2 years ago. The chair of our board, who luckily for us has a deep interest in public health, he's a man named Rick Segrist, who some of you may know. If you don't, I'd urge you to meet him. He's a professor at the Harvard School of Public Health, has been an entrepreneur, just a tremendous individual. He and I were at a conference on governance, and we heard a presentation by a guy named Randy Ustra at ProMedica, a large healthcare system in Toledo, Ohio. They've been at this for about 10 years and have just done amazing things. And we're both pretty inspired by the presentation and said, we each had the same thought, why can't we do this in Worcester? And we came back and started to develop it. He recruited some doctoral fellows at the Harvard School of Public Health who worked with us for the better part of a year in investigating how we would do this and what are the steps we would take, all of which led to a presentation to first Eric Dixon, of course. He was enthusiastically supportive, and we went to our board last summer with a proposal, and they unanimously and very enthusiastically supported it. This is what we said to them. We wanted to adopt an anchor mission as an aspiration for our organization. We thought it was important to make this embedded in our strategy, right? Oftentimes programs like this are really one-offs, or just things that are out there. When times get tough, they tend to go by the wayside. We felt that it had to be of equal importance to our strategic priorities as an organization. We wanted to do this as a whole system and not just any one part of us. And we wanted to do it gradually, so we kind of calibrate our energy with our investment and there's appropriate learning and understanding. Their response was, their only criticism was we're not moving fast enough. They love the idea. I think for many trustees, it's what got them coming to our organization and wanting to be involved. And so they were just really enthusiastic and wanted us to move even quicker than we were suggesting, which was music to our ears. So here are some obvious benefits, right? Our mission is to improve the health of the community. So can there be anything more aligned with that mission than looking beyond our walls to try to improve it? It's obviously the right thing to do, will set us apart. But here is a kind of unintended benefit that we've realized as we've been doing this. And that is, it is a huge employee engagement tool. We put together a steering committee. I speak all over throughout our organization to employees. Every time I do, I have 3 or 4 people coming up saying, how can I get involved? There is a yearning in our organization, I suspect in many of yours, for wanting to get involved in something bigger than themselves and really engage in something that can leave a legacy and help the community. And that's frankly quite inspiring to observe and to witness. And all the employees who have been involved in this are just deeply excited about it. They're all finding ways to fit it into their time. Somehow they can do it. So here's the fundamental problem, and Tim talked about this. Tim raised this issue in his talk about inequality, and I think I wrote down what you said, Tim, because it was quite inspiring. He said, zip code affects outcomes, and when it does, we all have a responsibility to respond. And what I'm going to suggest to you is it's even stronger than that, and frankly, more concerning than that, because zip code affects lives, unquestionably based on the data and the research. And so if we've got a responsibility to respond to inequality, I'm going to argue to you that because of what we're now learning about the effect it has on lifespan and life expectancy, then we may be moving from kind of a political discussion into a moral one. And certainly that's what I think motivates me in the organization. So my son goes to Skidmore College, and I love picking him up and dropping him off because there's this great news bookstore in Saratoga Springs, if any of you have been there. And so I go in every time, and I picked up Democracy in America. Embarrassed to say I haven't read it. And I opened the first line, and this is what de Tocqueville said in the early 1800s, and I suspect most of you know he toured this country and observed on what democracy and what our society was like. And what he observed was that he said nothing struck him as more forcibly than the general equality of conditions. The equality of conditions is a fundamental fact from which all the others seem to be derived in our country. And I thought, how ironic, right? And of course, from where he came in Europe and the aristocracies, it probably seemed far more equal in this country. And yet, I think if all of you have observed what's been happening, I think you'd all agree that what we've seen, certainly in the last 5, 10, or longer period of years, is this growing inequality in our country that is having all sorts of implications. And President Obama said this in 2013, and we all know it's certainly exacerbated greatly since that time. So the question is, how does that affect Worcester, and what issues of inequality do we have in Worcester? So I want to share a few slides. The state average of the poverty level in Massachusetts is about 10%. Worcester is about 22%. So the city of Worcester is about double the state average. And you'll see a bunch of other towns there that are listed that are below the state average. But that's really not the whole story, because when we look within Worcester, it's even more concerning. And this again gets to Tim's point about zip code, is there are certain zip codes that are worse, and in some cases substantially worse than even the average of Worcester, one having half the people in poverty in 01, 6, 08. So here is the zip codes in case any of you want to know. It is Plumley Village, that's correct. This is the area 05, 08, and 10. You know, it's right along 290, kind of a north to south corridor. This is, we're right around here. This is all Belmont Hill, just to the right of Route 9. Its main south is down here, as you can see. So those are the particular zip codes that have issues. And as I mentioned, I do think it's become a deeper level when we start to understand the impact this is having on health. And so here's just some data I want to show you. I had an uncle who unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago. Butchie Brown, Bernie Brown was his name, and my uncle Butch was the vice president of student affairs at WPI. And he was there for 30 years. And I guess when he became vice president late in his tenure, they give you a house at WPI, which is a great thing. And that house happens to be on the corner of Park and Salisbury on Regent Street. Probably many of you know where it is. What is it? The Antiquarian Society across the street. So you probably know exactly where it is. So I spent many Thanksgivings at his house. He loved to cook. It's a great neighborhood. So if a baby born today was born in my Uncle Butch's house and in that neighborhood, their life expectancy is 84 years old. If that same baby is born 2 miles to the south in Kelly Square, the life expectancy goes down 11 years, which is just remarkable if you think about it. I mean, we're talking the same city, the same zip code, in the same state, in the same country, right? We're not talking about the third world here. 2 miles apart is 11 years. And you just think about what's happened in the past 11 years in your lives, and that's just really profound. Now, when I tell this slide, some people say, well, Doug, if you've driven in Kelly Square, you can probably understand why it's so much less, and that may be part of it, but I doubt it. So another way of looking at it is this is 290. You know, this is the exit. I get off every day to go to work, 22. This is probably, what, less than a mile, right? These two exits, and it's also 11-year difference between this neighborhood and this neighborhood. This is in Shrewsbury, of course. Here's another way of thinking about it. Life expectancy overall, Massachusetts, 80.7. By the way, if you live in my Uncle Butch's house, you're doing better than the average in Massachusetts at 84. USA, as a state, we're better than the nation as a whole. Then we get Albania, Vietnam, and Honduras before we get to Maine South. Then Venezuela before we get to Kelly Square. And then Bangladesh and Libya before we get to Union Hill. Now, I have nothing against these countries, but I suspect that many of you don't think that that we have the same life expectancy as a lot of these countries. And the fact is, in pockets of our city, and indeed our state and our country, we're a lot worse than many countries that we'd never think we should be. So when we talk about how advanced we are as a society or a city, we're not in certain parts. And what the data shows is that these social determinants of health, the reason we have these health outcomes, we think it all comes back to empowerment. So when you don't have a job, or when you have a job that just doesn't allow you to make ends meet, when your housing is not suitable, when you feel unsafe to walk in your neighborhood, when you have problems getting to places you need, there's a certain stress level in your life and a lack of being able to control your own destiny that has these huge implications on your health. And so inequality has all sorts of implications for these communities, and I think what we have to ask ourselves is, we're all feeling this renaissance that Worcester is going through, and we're all excited and passionate about it. It's a great thing, but if parts of our city are not thriving at all, are we really comfortable with the way our city's going? And so this really is about the disparity and the inequality that Tim raised earlier. So let me tell you what we've been doing and what we're trying to do to address this. So we formed a steering committee in the organization. We brought in members of our organization from not the usual suspects, right? We had a lot of people like Monica Lowell, who you probably all know pretty well, who's just been out there in the community. But we brought in finance people and legal people, because again, this anchor mission is a very different way of thinking. And I knew once we got our finance people to agree that this is something we should be doing, we've won the day, and I think we're there. So we brought in all sorts of expertise. We brought in our union participation. SHARE is our largest union, and they've been just phenomenal in helping us think through this. We wanted to learn from others and develop an action plan for ourselves. We had a retreat. Again, getting back to that engagement, these are quotes that came from the people who participated. I'm proud of the organization, the coolest thing I've ever done at UMass Memorial. I will always remember this day. I mean, it was really some of the most inspiring work that I've been a part of in our organization. This is what we came up with. We broke into 3 work streams. We've got committees now under each of these groups. The hiring committee has identified 5 specific categories of our entry-level positions that we think would be suitable for really reaching out and getting deep into some of these neighborhoods to identify opportunities. We've been meeting with a number of organizations in this city, some of which may be represented in this room, that spend all of their time working with individuals to help them with employment issues. And so these organizations we will work with to help provide supports to individuals we identify who are appropriate for these positions, and then we will work with the individuals once they get into our organization to try to help move them up over time, and we hope that's all going to launch in the next month or so. Of course, it'll start out small, right? We want to build and small wins, but we're excited by that. The investment group, we took a proposal to our investment committee in November, and they voted, again, unanimously to allocate 1% of our portfolio, which is $4 million, and to invest it in the community. And the investment group has been meeting with all sorts of community groups. In the typical areas you'd think, housing has been a very big one for obvious reasons. So we've had great conversations with Jan and many others. And we're probably a month away from deciding on our first investments in the community. And then purchasing, they've been, again, looking at others, learning from others, and have come up with a draft policy on how we'll tweak our purchasing policies to try to do this. We've been, please don't be insulted if your logo is not up here. This is a small sampling of the organizations we've started to have conversations with. We anticipate having many more. This is really the first time I've been talking publicly to such a large group. We still consider ourselves kind of in the infancy of this process, but we would love to talk to as many people as possible about ideas, how we can do better and improve. And finally, where we go from here, tomorrow we're having our second of what we call our windshield tour, where we get a large minivan, or it's actually a shuttle bus of some kind, Monica Lowell runs it. We invite our trustees, we invite our steering committee, and we just spend a half a day going through the neighborhoods, those zip codes that I mentioned, meeting people, looking at the areas, finding opportunities. I'll tell you, when I did it, it was incredibly moving. You know, for so many of us, we can easily justify all the stuff, why we have to be in the office every day and why we can never get out. And just getting out and seeing what we're reading and learning about is really profound. And the chair of our board's coming tomorrow, so we're really excited about that as well. April 7th, these students have done a Harvard case study now on this project, and they're presenting it on April 7th to a group of alumni of the School of Public Health. So we'll have a good conversation with them about our work and hopefully get some feedback. We're hosting a convening of New England anchor missions, so other healthcare organizations like ours who are thinking about this. Some of the prominent ones both in Massachusetts and throughout New England will be coming to share ideas about how to do this well. We're going to be going to a national conference in June, and then Rick Segrist and I are going to meet with some of the largest health systems in the country, have invited CEOs and board chairs to come together and have a conversation nationally about how we can really accelerate this work. So that's it. That's our journey. That's what we're doing. Would love to hear any thoughts, concerns, either now or at any time. Please feel free to email me. There's my address. Call me. Show up in my office. I'd love to just pick your brains, hear from you about how we can do this well, because I think it's a really exciting thing for our city and for our organization. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'd love questions or comments. Please.
Good morning. I'll be loud till I get the mic. Thank you. Doug, thank you. And Tim, congratulations, and thank you too. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jill DeGillis. I know a lot of you. I'm proud to be the Executive Director of Worcester Community Action Council. We are the anti-poverty agency for Worcester and Central Massachusetts, and we serve over 75,000 people a year. Doug, you, Cheryl, Monica, Eric, your whole team have been amazing partners in the business that I am honored to do. The anti-poverty work is not sexy. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time to work with people who are in struggling situations. UMass has been a great partner in youth employment with us, in helping. We have a whole group of doctors, nurses, and other staff who every year take up their own donations and give to us for our heating program. The heating program that we run, LIHEAP, is federally funded, but we get lots of local donations. National Grid, Alita's here. National Grid is a great donor to us for emergency no heat situations. But as an example of poverty in Worcester and here in Central Mass, there are over 30,000 people that we serve alone. We are one of 23 community action agencies just in Massachusetts running heating assistance programs. It's cold in New England. We have old housing stock. So in addition to the points that you make about what is the health of the community, we see every day, every year, people who are struggling to heat their homes, pay their bills, buy their meds, buy their food. And these are real situations. And of the over 30,000 people, 1/3 of those are seniors, another third are folks with disabilities and varying abilities. The balance are working families. The misnomer about people are just taking advantage of systems is really not true in the world that we see and the people that we work with. I am excited about what you have to say today. I want to help, we want to help. I'm retiring. I want to stay at work now because of what you just said. But honestly, I am from Worcester, and what you're saying and what you're doing is very exciting. It is very forward-thinking. It does work. You have lots of ideas about social enterprise to try to help young people get into jobs where they might not otherwise be able to get into the workforce. So I just really want to say thank you. The need is real. The poverty statistics are real. Children in our schools, really, you can't turn away from it. And it is about equality and opportunity. I've seen that every day for 13 years, and I'm honored to do the work. But again, I'll underscore that it's hard work. It takes more than one organization. It takes more than one institution. It takes a lot of people working together. We'll be at your session on Monday as this rolls out a little further, but please accept on behalf of nonprofits here a huge thank you for what you've done to date and over time, and hopefully for what you're rolling out here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
I think a critical portion that we're having that our educational system is not what it was. You know, Worcester used to have a classical high school, which was I went to, it was a prep school at public expense. We don't have that anymore. And so I think we need to, in this program, which I compliment you on developing, needs to stress the fact that our school systems, if we're going to move forward and eradicate inequality, has to be top quality. And that's a goal that I don't think we're meeting at the present time.
Thank you, Dee. Yeah, I got that comment when I presented the United Way last week as well. You know, I think that part of the challenge here, and I think the opportunity, is it's a different way of thinking. And you know, the challenge I put out there to other businesses, particularly nonprofit and particularly educational institutions who share some of the attributes that we do, is making the case that we're not talking about giving money away, right? Which doesn't always sit well with whether it's nonprofit or for-profit institutions. The investments that we make from that money for our investment, we expect a return, and we're going to get a return, and we're going to make sure we do it well. We're just not looking for a huge return. But if we just cover our capital and get it back, and we've been able to build housing or help, you know, turn around neighborhoods, now that's a huge investment. And so my hope is that we can show some success, and maybe, you know, if we get $400 million, there's a lot more money in this community that is being invested in stocks and bonds all over, a small portion of which, if redirected, could have a profound difference. Imagine our 4 million, you could multiply that many times, but we've got to pick the right things early and show success, not only in being a good community investment, but making sure we don't lose that, because that will sink it. So I'm hopeful that if we do this right, we can leverage much larger stuff. Please.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, Tim, for your next, I'm sure it's an amazing adventure. And I really appreciate what you talked to share with us today, Doug. So you talk about investment, and I really hope that what I'm saying will be taken with, you know, I respectfully would like to share with you that the investment part also, I would like to see it expand to partnering. Many small community-based organizations benefit so much from the investment of UMass Memorial Healthcare, and Monica Lowell and UMass Memorial has been a great friends of the Southeast Asian Coalition and other groups. And so at the Southeast Asian Coalition, from that, we are ready to partner with your institution. And I think other community-based organizations are ready at that point as well. For example, the Southeast Asian Coalition serves more than 10,000 clients every year who are immigrants and refugees. And we constitute only 6% of the population that Tim's almanac showed us. And out of that, the number of students who graduate from high school and their score were quite high, really, really high. I think almost the same level or higher than the white classmates. What I'm trying to say is that out of this year application for college, at least 22 students were accepted at colleges already, including MIT, Yale, Stanford, Brown, and all of the UMass schools, and Quincy community colleges. And I think it's important for us to really feel community-based organization, if we want to support communities and turn poverty, reduce that number of percentage that you've seen, that we have seen from your wonderful, I took pictures of it because of those slides. In order for us to do that, I think it's important that incredible organizations and institutions like UMass Memorial to partner with these organizations who have worked very hard to really, just like what Jill said, to turn poverty around and recognize these strengths and partner with us, invest with us in order for us to bring the community up. And there's no other way that the community will get better if an outsider, outside the community, to work with them. We have to work with the people that are from the community. I really appreciate what you're saying, and I just a comment from an experienced refugee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's not at all disrespectful. In fact, you're right on. And partnership has been a core component of this, because we know we won't succeed if we do it alone. So in every one of those pillars, hiring, sourcing, and investing, our goal is to partner with community groups who know how to do this better than we do. So we absolutely welcome it. We can definitely do better, and I invite you both to continue to have dialogue with us on how we can do that better.
Doug, great idea. I would join people on your board saying go faster. And I think the youth of America want this to happen. And de Tocqueville actually had said, I believe in some part of the book that you talked about, is that equality what struck him, but it would be inequality that brought democracy down. And he did even think about the 1800s. So I think the youth in the United States now will help. And I'd be interested in what the people in the education places that you've talked with, did you talk to the students? Because I think that that's the answer to the future. You know, they're going to drive it one way or the other. In fact, they're going to support candidates for presidency that are on that end of the spectrum, as you know. So
it's a great point, Bob. So haven't talked to any. That's great. I will put your name on the list. Yeah. Haven't talked to any college students yet. But I have talked to medical students in the medical school. The medical school is very involved. They definitely want to help, and as you can imagine, to your point, I've talked to residents and medical students, and they love it, and they really want to participate. So I think you're absolutely right, and figuring out a way to engage students, I think, would be phenomenal. So, you know, I haven't even had conversations with the colleges and universities yet. I've had conversations with other leaders in the community who've worked with them, but I'm eager to talk to all of the universities and colleges, both about that and about their investment portfolios. I mean, I know Clark has been unbelievable in Maine South and what they've done, and in many ways that's a model that we want to try to replicate.
Speaking for one of the colleges, Joe McManus, Tufts University, I do know that most of the colleges in Worcester have active community engagement and giving back and outreach programs. As some of you know, we have a program over at Worcester Technical High School, jointly training our DVM students and animal health, animal assisting students in the high school. The shop kids built out a 3-classroom veterinary clinic, and those students are working on live animals for the first time. We saw 6,000 patients. Means tested clients, so we're not taking those cases from other veterinarians, but those students are now graduating not just with a high school diploma, but 100% of them are getting a work certification as certified animal care attendants that they can go right out and use in the workforce. And then we have a number of other STEM outreach programs using animals to excite middle school students and keep them in science. And so we're doing these kinds of things, and happy that you're jumping in with your efforts as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Doug. A generic comment I would make also is the impact of UMass Memorial and also the University of Mass Medical School in terms of economic development over the past 40 years. John Weaver is here, the new CEO of Mass Biotech Initiatives. A major program is planned for June, celebrating 3 or 4 generations of governors. $260 million is coming into this community for research from NIH as a result of UMass Medical, WPI, and others. And we continue to have an economic engine related to the presence of the medical center and its affiliates. So thank you again for that as well. And Tim, thank you and good luck in your new career. We hope to see you often. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your support. Take care.